So far away, Lucas, and lovely audience at home, are you ready for another episode of Wiki Weekends, the series where we scour the lengths and breadths of the internet to find a wiki on a subject we're interested in to see what interesting stuff we can find therein? And today we're talking about what I think might be my favourite, or at least the superhero movie I've watched the most. And would you like to hazard a guess at what that is? I'll give you a clue. It might be yours as well.
Is it Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Cut?
Nope. The Incredibles.
You're the best of the best,
Yes, I know, darling. I know.
Oh, The Incredibles. Okay, so yeah, literally one of the best superhero films out there.
Yeah, so like that sounds like a joke, doesn't it? Like it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. But I legit think The Incredibles might be one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. Like, and it's certainly the one I rewatched the most. I rewatched it last night because it was like 10 o'clock. I didn't want to play any games. I didn't want to do any more work. I went, I just want to watch a film before bed. I went, I might just watch The Incredibles again.
And I tell you what, it's the best fucking Fantastic Four movie.
It is. That's the thing. Like, I think the only other superhero movie that I've watched more is like Endgame. Just because I always end up watching it with friends, with drinks when it gets to the final fight. But like all those MCU movies, I watch all the new ones, but I never find myself wanting to go back and watch any of the early ones. Whereas The Incredibles, I can go back and watch that over and over again. That movie is so good.
Hey.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, the animation is still like kind of got that weird like glossy sheen on the early Pixar stuff, but it holds up pretty well.
Yes, and like obviously The Incredibles 2 looks better, but I think The Incredibles 1 has a better story. And we're not talking about The Incredibles, we're talking specifically about Mr. Incredible. Like, you know, the reason the film is named. And we're on the Incredibles wiki, which exists, and we're going to be talking about Mr. Incredible. So do you have a favourite member of like the Incredibles like cast and crew? Like I think Mr. Incredible is like the heart of the movie. Like his relationship with his wife is the heart of the movie. But we all know the real best character is Edna Mode. And Guest.
It's like Edna Mode's great just for the like short cameo that she's in there, but like
Edna Mode. And Guest.
I think in Incredibles 1, my favourite was Elastigirl / Mrs. Incredible, but like I think in Incredibles 2, I really gave in to the Jack jokes.
Yeah, that's it. I don't like the Jack jokes because like it's that thing of I don't like the little kid characters in movies, and they kind of got away with the Incredibles with Dash and Violet, where they're not in it much, and it's just you have that moment where like their mum's telling them, like, do you know those movies where like the little kids will always fight against the bad guys and win, and Dash is like, yeah, it's like this isn't like that. They will kill you. And it's like you know you're watching a different kind of, and that's the thing as well. It's such a different kind of superhero movie. Despite like leaning into a lot of the tropes, it breaks quite a few of them.
These guys are not like those guys. They won't exercise restraint because you're children. They will kill you if they get the chance. Do not give them that chance.
Yeah, I think it definitely intends to break some tropes of superhero genre, but which is a shame because then Incredibles 2 just kind of leans into them all.
Yeah, because like the gap between Incredibles 1 and Incredibles 2, you had like 10 years of the MCU, and it's like, oh, superhero movies kind of have a formula that we've got to stick to.
And I think that's why I enjoy Jack so much in Incredibles 2, because there's just those like comedic moments of levity where Jack just like walking through walls or teleporting about or setting on fire, and it's like I love the idea of a character with infinite power but can't control it.
Laser eyes. Stop.
Wow!
And you mentioned the Fantastic Four earlier, Lucas, and for people who maybe don't know, would you like to explain like why The Incredibles is basically just a Fantastic Four movie?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is 4 main characters, but there's 5 in the family, and apart from the fact that it's Marvel's first family is Fantastic Four, as a like nice nod to that, it's also just like a lot of their powers also like Elastigirl is Mr. Fantastic power set, Violet has got the Invisible Woman set like power set, Mr. Incredible is strong like the Thing, and then obviously you have Dash, but then also Jack can set on fire like the Human Torch, I suppose.
Yep, and then in the second movie, he has, like, you mentioned Unlimited Potential, which is Franklin Richards, who is, like, the Marvel character who's, like, the most broken OP, and he's, like, the son of Mr. Fantastic and Susan Storm, who basically broke the universe, and they keep writing him out of comics when he's boring, but they're bringing him back in to fix things. And it's a whole mess, and we will cover, no doubt, on another episode of Wiki Weekends. But Mr. Incredible, we have a quote about out Mr. Incredible from Pixar themselves. True to his incredible strengths, all Bob wants to do is save the world, even if he has to do it undercover. It almost takes losing everything, however, for him to see that the real source of his power is his extraordinary family.
And it is a really, like, lovely, heartfelt movie and message.
It's so good. It's got that, like, Pixar schmaltz that I think is missing from a lot of other superhero movies, bar like maybe the Raimi ones, because they feel like they've got a heart.
Any more bright ideas? I got a few. Yeah.
There's a real distinct lack of any sort of, like, emotive weight in a lot of the MCU movies on rewatchers because they're always setting up a sequel. So why would you give a shit? Like, watching the first Thor movie where, like, Thor's sad that Loki's dead, and then in your head, you're like, well, he's in the movies for 10 more years and he's got his own TV show.
Yeah, I think it's the second. Is the second one where Loki dies?
He dies,
and then like the first one, like Thor as a civilian dies, but then gains his powers back from Mjolnir and comes back to life. And it's there's just that, you know, comic book esqueness of like no one's gonna die, and
no
obviously
one ever really dies.
You have a couple of mainstays that like have over the years, but for the most part, no one dies.
Not to mention as well, there's that thing. It's where I think it's like the Marvelification of movies where you can never have like just an actual, just heartfelt moment. There has to be a quip. You can't ever have just an emotive moment left for a few seconds to sit. You have to have a stupid fucking quip so the audience laughs.
Loki is beyond reason, but he is of Asgard, and he is my brother.
He killed 80 people in 2 days.
He's adopted.
Like they don't have faith in, like, you know, the tone. So, and I think the worst example, or the best example of that and how bad it is, has got to be like Thor, Love and Thunder, where they have like stupid like Marvel quips in a story about like Thor's first love interest dying of cancer and a guy whose kid dies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all over the place.
Yeah, it really is. The fact that they brought in, like, Gore the God Butcher, who's, like, turned to the Necro Source for lack of faith in God's doing anything, and then it's like, but every line is a joke, and there's screaming goats and shit, and it's like, what is going on here?
My daughter died. In your name.
Oh, look at that! Those things are beautiful.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things like it's so strange to think like, well, Pixar does it so well. Like, they mix that schmaltz with that, like, you know, the action. It's like the Incredibles action's really good. Some phenomenally well choreographed like action sequences. It like probably some of the best in a superhero movie, bar like maybe the Raimi Spider-Man movies, I'd say.
Yeah, I like there are obviously like bits and pieces throughout all of the MCU movies with really good choreography. Like you think of the like some of the Winter Soldier stuff.
Everyone always brings that up. Like, what about the Winter Soldier fight? Yeah, but what about like fucking Secret Wars?
Yeah, and Civil War, yeah, and it's like I still like some of the fight scene
Secret
in
Invasion,
like
sorry, yeah.
Oh, Secret Invasion, yeah, God, yeah. That was oof.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like the fact that not only is it really well choreographed, it's really well choreographed using weird powers and using weird like you know, fun parts of those power sets, like Dash figuring out he can run on the water.
But I think like when I was rewatching it yesterday, just a little bit of like, just what would it be like if there's a superhero who's like so in control of their powers? And it's like Elastigirl, where it's like, quick, help me, like take out the thing's gun. And she just picks up a manhole cover and swings her. And one of the details I absolutely adore when she picks up the manhole cover and like slingshots it is that it's heavy. It's heavy for her to pick up, but as soon as like the elasticity takes over, she no longer struggles with it.
Yeah, she can like decapitate a man with that manhole cover by the end, but yeah, she physically can't lift it, but she can use her powers for it.
And because she's so she understands fully what her powers allow her to do, it's like it's so fun. But Bob Parr, also known as Mr. Incredible, is the husband of Helen Parr, the father of Violet Parr, Dashel Parr, and Jack Parr. Also the main protagonist of the Incredibles franchise, because it is a franchise. People think it's 2 movies, but there is the Rise of the Underminer game, which is canon to the
canon. Yeah.
It's canon, and for like literally 10 years, it was the only way to find out what happened after The Incredibles 1, because The Incredibles 1 ends with like such a good cliffhanger, and the balls for them in The Incredibles 2 to take it starts exactly where the first film ended 10 years ago.
This world will be like the underworld, and I will rule the above from beneath the entire planet.
Who is this guy?
You will all be crushed within my grip. Whoever he is, he's shown up in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, yeah, I think it was even longer, and yeah, that's the unfun part of that story, is that Rise of the Underminer then becomes non-canon, but it was just a funny little thing of, hey, remember that PS2 game that no one played? That's canon to Incredibles, and
There's
now
so
it's
many
not.
things like that with movies, though. I remember, like, for years, like, the Alien franchise had a bunch of the video games were canon to what happened to Ellen Ripley. So you had to play the video games to find out what the fuck happened to her, because she appears in a bunch of them, And we just have here some basic biographical information. So age, he's 25 in the prologue, 40 in the movie. His status is alive. His powers, which we'll go into more detail later, are super strength, 9 vulnerability, super speed, agility, endurance, and sensors. And then his personal information is he has several nicknames and aliases: Bob Parr, Mr. Incredible, Mr. Parr, Mr. Inedible, and Robert. His occupation is a superhero.
And I also, when you mentioned the prologue, I think that sets up a really intriguing story and essentially does like
I would watch a fucking prequel to The Incredibles of like the hero glory days so much. I would love to watch that movie.
Yeah, that would be a really cool thing to do. And just I love the premise of like the heroes going into hiding because they're, you know, too much of kind of like a threat in a sense. And
that idea of a guy sues a super. I love that intro where it's like, you saved a guy who didn't want to be saved. And he's like, I saved your life. It's like, no, you ruined my death. And then just the little thing of, as soon as that happens, it opens the floodgates. And then the people that Mr. Incredible rescued earlier in the scene, all just, wait a minute, we can sue superheroes? I got injured too, let's sue him for that.
5 days later, another suit was filed by the victims of the L train accident. Incredible's court losses cost the government millions. And opened the floodgates for dozens of superhero lawsuits the world over.
And the government's like, we can't fucking... just get rid. It's such an interesting concept for a movie. It's like, how is it that in the opening 5 minutes of The Incredibles, like, just the thing they do to set up their universe is better handled than the Sokovia Accords, which took 4 movies to set up?
That's what I was going to compare it to. It's like that Sokovia Accords, yeah.
Within, like, literally within the space of, like, not even animated, like, literally, like, it's what, 3... It's a slideshow and a narration.
No, it is a full animated thing.
Oh, right, but I remember, like, you know, when they're explaining it, it shows, so I watched it yesterday, it's like the black and white footage, and it shows you, like, and thus ended the days of the hero, and it's just a few slide shots and, like, you know, some, like, zoom cuts, some snap cuts to, like, some headlines in newspapers. And that's all they need to establish why superheroes cannot exist without, like, you know, government intervention. And Marvel handled it so much worse, even though they had the perfect setup.
Yeah, and then I also just love kind of what you think is the throwaway gag of Buddy trying to help, and then obviously that sets up Syndrome.
Yep, it's all so well set up, and it's all in this self-contained, like 90-minute long movie. And I think again, like a movie. I'd mentioned that I don't rewatch many superhero movies, but I think I did rewatch some of the Captain America ones. Like usually when there's like a TV show dealing with a character, I'll rewatch what they appeared in. And one thing that struck me about the whole thing about the Sokovia Accords is, man, you can tell the people making these movies just do not want to ask any questions that are they don't want to ask actual questions of what they're doing. It's like, I think when Captain America, he goes into a foreign country and like blows up a hand grenade that kills like 30 people with the Scarlet Witch, and he's like, well, what happens if they want us to send us to a country where we don't want to go, or they tell us not to go to a place where we want to go? And like at no point does he realize that you killed 15 people.
You're coming with me.
Like that's the, he never actually takes any responsibility for the fact he killed people. It's like, but we were stopping a criminal, and it's like, but you killed people.
You chose to do that. If we sign this, we surrender our right to choose. What if this panel sends us somewhere we don't think we should go? What if there's somewhere we need to go and they don't let us? We may not be perfect, but the safest hands are still our own.
And it never gets acknowledged that the Scarlet Witch blows up blows up an office building with a grenade. They just sweep it under the rug. And, like, it never gets mentioned that Captain America fucking killed people.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the thing where it's like, well, it does get brought up in the sense of, like, the Sokovia Accords then happen because of it, but, like,
he never
it does get
acknowledges it,
swept under the rug real quick, yeah.
And it's like, that's the thing. Well, that's an interesting question. I would, like, watch an entire TV show dealing with the aftermath of that. That's why I, like, was so disappointed by She-Hulk. I would watch a TV show, it's like, okay, someone trying to sue the Incredible Hulk. Because, like, you know, he threw my car and, like, I can't get to work. He destroyed my car, I can't get to work, I want to sue him in small claims court for, like, loss of earnings. And I would love to see, like, you know, the resolution to something like that, because it makes the world feel more alive. Of, like, okay, how would laws work in a world where superheroes exist? I would like to know that. And the Captain America's like, I go where I please in my America outfit and blow people up with impunity. How dare you tell me what to do?
It's very Homelander of him.
It's just one of those things of, like, I get it because he's supposed to be right, but the only reason he's right is because he's the main character. And I feel like if you framed that movie, so imagine like a movie where it opens with like just a guy in an office block and then there's like 40 people die.
Yeah.
And then he looks outside and he sees a man dressed in the flag of a country that is not his own, beating down a terrorist with superpowers and then flying away. And then he turns on the news and it says that guy didn't stand trial. That's the start of like a revenge movie. Anyway.
There's no decision-making process here. We need to be put in check. Whatever form that takes, I'm game. If we can't accept limitations, we're boundaryless, we're no better than the bad guys.
And we'll no doubt talk about that another time. People will be really mad in the comments, because whenever you bring up stuff like this, people always go, well, he's a hero. It's like, okay, you don't like nuance or discussions of your favourite media. Why are you watching these videos?
Yeah, that is the thing, right? As I say, like, it's quite Homelander-esque in the sense of if you'd shot the perspective differently and said that was a Homelander scene and he just fucked off home, it's like, you could believe that as well.
But, like, you know, people don't like it when you make fun of the MCU, so let's move on to talking about how good The Incredibles is. So, personality. Bob's personality is that of a classical hero. He's nice, friendly, strong, brave, fatherly, heroic, and pleasant. But as shown in newsreels, he is physically invulnerable, but is all too human in his flaws. And his NSA file describes him as easily distracted and unable to prioritise. And that's one of the things I like as well, of just little throwaway background details that you wouldn't ordinarily take into account. Like, just make the world feel more alive. Like, Joey's scrolling through all the superhero things. Like, all the superheroes that got killed. It's like, yesterday, because I knew I'd be doing this wiki, as I was pausing, going through that section. And, like, not only do all of the heroes have powers and power ratings, you'll notice that every time the hit... Joey mentioned that the Omnidroid learns as it gets defeated. Like, the little thing on the bottom of the Omnidroid thing, every time it's defeated, gets an upgrade that would allow it to beat the hero that just killed it.
Exactly. They literally show in the documentation, it got defeated this way, therefore we've made this change.
And when it's like, you know, the slideshow goes to the next one, it's like the Omnidroid has new upgrades and new features, which will allow it to circumvent that happening. And then when you see at the end of the film, it's got like 15 legs, because apparently it's the easiest way.
And I do think as well, like, Syndrome is onto something in the sense of, like, those Omnidroids are great. You know what else is great? Is zero gravity finger pointer.
Yeah, but he even says that, like, again, a great little detail of, yeah, I sold, like, my... Do you know what? People want respect. There's a lot of countries out there who want respect, so I sold, like, my devices to them. I kept the best stuff for myself.
Yeah, he does, and I get that his point is, like, look, I could sell my shit and not be, like, known or respected, but if I become the superhero, then I gain my, like, the attention that I want.
Yeah, it's not what it's like. It's one thing to be rich, but it's another thing to be, like, you know, respected for, like, you know, the power that you wield. Like, power, and they even said it when he's in, like, the volcano. It's like, he's a man who's attracted to power.
Yeah.
And then we have, like, you know, he's a good guy. He's trying, but he's prideful. He's egotistical. He longs for those glory days.
I mean, it must suck, right? Yeah. Being the superhero at the top of your game, and then you're forced to not use your powers.
It's even, like, as well, just like the little bits, like, you know, the older I get, the more some of those, like, just little moments of him wandering around his house, like, looking at pictures of himself.
Yeah.
Or, like, when he puts his super suit on and it doesn't fit.
Yeah, and he's like, oh no, let's go, like, fucking deadlift some trains.
Which I think as well is what an amazing scene as well. Like, how often do you see superheroes actually training? Because like you never see superheroes training in movies, do you? Like Spider-Man, like you have like the opening thing of him learning to swing around, then he's perfect at it. And one of the things I like again with The Incredibles, it's one movie, standalone, self-contained. You have like his glory days. You have him when he's not at his peak, and you see, well, I'm strong. I can beat the Omnidroid, and it kicks his ass. But then like it cracks his back and he gets better, and then he fights more at his prime. Then he trains to get better, and he regains his physical prime. Exactly.
It's like he realizes that he lucked the fuck out on that one, and he's like, okay, I am nowhere near what I used to be.
Yeah, and he just goes back, and the idea as well, it shows like, well, how would a guy that strong train? With trains. He just bench pressing trains.
And I do, the one thing I will say that I don't think it's necessarily bad writing, but it really frustrates me of like the trope of like he's sneaking away to do this like extra, missions and stuff and make himself feel better, but the fact that he won't communicate with his wife and then she thinks he's cheating on him, and it's like,
yeah, but that's like just what they needed, a little bit of drama. And I will give big props to the voice actress for Elastigirl, Holly Hunter. Because she might have like some of the best, like most believable line readings in an animated movie. And the first one is when she thinks Bob's cheating, and she's gonna wish him away, and she does that thing. She does that breathe in. She goes, and she goes, "Han, see you later, honey. I love you." And you can feel it.
Yeah,
you can feel it. And then the next one is when she's just in the plane, and it's just like she's flying the plane. It's like niner, and then like the increasing exasperation, like there are children on board. Like, just how exacerbated, how scared she is in that moment is, like, so palpable. And it's like, that's really good. And then just, why don't they just get more, like, actors or voice actors who can do that?
Hey, India Golf 909 is buddy spike. Abort! Abort! There are children aboard. Say again, there are children aboard this. No! Put a field around us now! I've never done one that big. Violet, do it now! Abort! 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 Abort!
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to find that good a voice actor, I guess, but it is really funny because like you get that heartfelt moment where you're like, she doesn't give a shit about her being shot at. It's the fact that her children are, and they're being put in danger. But then it smash cuts to her being a boat. And just like dash paddling along.
But it's just I think it's an interesting application of the powers. And speaking of which, the powers and abilities of Mr. Incredible are superhuman strength. His primary superpower is tremendous levels of superhuman strength. While the precise limits of his strength are not clear, according to Syndrome's data file on supers, his exact weightlifting limit is in excess of 66 tons. There was previously seen bench pressing an Alco locomotive, which weighs at least 153 tons. Which would put him on par with, like, the Hulk in his base form.
In base form, yes, yeah. And I think, like, I really enjoy that idea, though, that Syndrome's still got his, like, he's geeked out on all of these people and built, like, a database, but it's all based on his powers, like, when he was younger, so, like, maybe he's stronger now.
Well, we don't know, do we? It's that thing of, like, did he ever train when he was younger? Or did he just rely on, like, his, like, youth? Whereas when he's older and he's trained, he probably did get stronger because he never felt the need to push himself past his limits until he had to. Then we have here, it says that he's able to bench press locomotives and find equal footing with the Omnidroid. His incredible superhuman strength extends to, like, his leg muscles, like a jump. The NSA file, which is, I think, like a little extra you get on one of the DVDs, says that his strength was such they had to designate it as mega strength. It is in a separate category from all other similarly powered superheroes. So he's literally in a class of his own.
He is the strong guy out of all the strong guys.
Yes, and then we have here, it's like, not to mention as well, like, he's able to lift the Omnidroid, like Joe, and it's about to crush his kids, which fans online have calculated probably weighed about 40,000, like about 20,000 tons.
And as well was pushing down. Yeah, it was actively trying to crush him.
Violet?
Go!
so it's, even more strength than needed. But I don't know whether we're gonna get into it or not. But I can't finish this video without also just giving a props to his best friend Frozone.
Oh, Frozone's so good. That might be as well the most interesting applications of ice powers.
It's very, very cool.
The thing we always talk about is it's really boring when characters have superpowers and then just use them to punch things. And that's why I keep putting in the clip from Secret Invasion, sorry. Where it's like, and I think it was me and you when we were talking about after the fact, realised that, wow, almost every single hero in the MCU just has super strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because when you see Gaia flipping through all the different powers that she has, and it's like, oh, I've got Drax the Destroyer. I've got the rock monster from Thanos' army. I've got the Hulk. It's like, well, all those are just really strong.
Yeah.
They're not interesting in any way. When you see the Frozone, just like when the Omnidroid, you think, what the fuck's he going to do against the Omnidroid? And it's like when you just he simply aims for the joints.
Mm-hmm.
He aims for the joints on its legs so it can fall, and then he freezes the floor when it loses the legs, it slips and falls over.
Frozone! Yeah!
Bob!
And then creating the giant ice wave to try and stop it crushing them as well. And just as well, obviously the speed skating is so cool.
Which as well, just how fast he goes, which you obviously think after years of doing it, just how quick he'd be going. And we got to give shouts one of the best, speaking of good line readings, it's just where's my super
suit?
It's like, the city is in danger. My evening's in danger. It's so good, isn't it?
The public is in danger!
My evening's in danger!
You tell me what my suit is, woman!
Because it is that, yeah, sure, he's kept his suit from his glory days, but it's realistically, it's probably just sat in a wardrobe for 15 years, and Mr. Incredible's got it in this big glass case to remember it by, and then it's like, no, I put it in the wash. It's like, why did you put it in the wash?
The one that I like though is again, I think the sign of a good story. I think it's something Tolkien said, where the sign of a good story is one line makes you ask 3 questions. And there's so many interesting things about the Incredibles universe I would love to see explored, because they haven't been. It means that I can talk about it ad nauseum with you. And another one is Edna Mode, where it's she gets his suit, and she's fixing it. Oh, Mega Mesh, yeah, it's an old design. And then I thought you were on you had a show in Milan last. He's like, yeah, it's boring though. I used to literally make clothes for gods, and that idea of what would that be like? Because that's an aspect of superhero media we never seen until She-Hulk, where it's okay, yeah, Spider-Man makes his suit, cool, and I guess Spider-Man's probably fine. He can move quite fast and he fights things. That's fair enough. What about a character like you said, She-Hulk? She grows 7 feet tall. What does her
what the intriguing thing to the suit designer was oh, you need this suit to work in both Jen and She-Hulk forms.
And that's why you have with Edna Mode, where she's going through all the things that can happen of Dash can run really fast, so I needed to design a fabric that would not succumb to the effects of friction, or your daughter who can turn invisible. I had to invent a new material that could interact with her invisibility powers. And just the idea of just Edna Mode being fashion is boring to me now, high fashion, couture fashion, why would I give a shit when I was solving problems for literal gods?
Your sword can stretch as far as you can without injuring yourself and still retain its shape. Virtually indestructible. It breathes like Egyptian cotton.
And then I love that's why she loves babysitting Jack so much, because she's oh, I need to figure out something that can do everything.
Just as well, just every scene Edna Mo's in, just the little things when Helen's crying and Edna's yes darling, just puts the tissues into the purpose-built flame box on a counter that just incinerates things.
I let this happen, The new sports car, the getting in shape, the blonde hair, the lies.
Yes, he attempts to relive the past.
Now I'm losing him. What do I do?
And obviously just the no capes rule as well,
No
just
capes.
iconic.
And that's great as well because you mentioned that it's how Syndrome dies because he he idealizes the visuals of a hero rather than the morals and the stances that they take. Like he wants to put in, and that's one of the things he says, like, well, I can replicate all of your powers. And it's like, but you didn't earn them. And it's like that's the thing people have kind of looked at in the year since the film was released of like Syndrome kind of does have a point of why should you be like celebrated just by a quirk of like genetics, quirk of birth. I'm able to replicate your powers, your abilities, just through my own genius. But
if anything, Syndrome earned them, and the people with actual powers didn't.
Mm-hmm. But then it's like that thing of you did, but then you didn't use them responsibly. Like you did earn your powers, but you didn't earn the right to wield them. It's like I think with great power comes great responsibility. It's like you weren't trying to use your powers to save people; you used them to amass a fortune by selling weapons to foreign nations, and then you wanted to create glory for yourself. Like you could have used these things to like cure diseases and stuff like that, but you didn't because you were selfish. Whereas the powers that I was given, sure, I didn't earn them per se, but I did use them in a way that benefited humanity. And it's just the fact that this is a kids' movie and you can have that discussion about it 15 years after release is, you know what? It's incredible. And if you want to see more incredible content from myself and Lucas, you can follow us on our Twitch channels, link below. You can subscribe and comment below for feedback. Let us know your favourite character in The Incredibles, or yell at us about the fact that Captain America is not a war criminal when he actually super totally is. And as always, subscribe for more, and we'll see you all next time. We get to 29 now.
You got that right in at the end there.
Yep.